I just realized I was muted. Hey everyone, this is Shinju. I have Leia with me from Centrifuge. She'll be doing a talk on farming invoices, leading DeFi from Degen to Regen. Can you introduce yourself? And for the audience, can you confirm that you can hear her when she starts talking?
Okay, cool. Hi, so I'll be switching over to my speaking slide tab, so I won't be seeing the chat. Feel free to ask any questions during the talk, and then I will get back to it afterwards. So my name is Leia, and I will be talking about Centrifuge, and in particular about farming invoices, or put in other words, how decentralized or tokenized real-world assets such as invoices can complement DeFi and help moving from this current more degenerate space that we're in to a more regenerative, sustainable system. And DeFi is basically an umbrella term for new decentralized finance applications, and mostly built on public Ethereum blockchain, and allows anyone to get access to applications such as exchanges, money markets, synthetics, you name it. And the status, though, or how DeFi is currently running is it is very much a circular finance system with a bunch of ICO tokens moving from one DeFi protocol to the next and optimizing for margin leverage margin trading. And DeFi has seen an extravagant growth over the past few months, and this has really been accelerated by liquidity mining, or in other words, yield farming. And it started out with Compound providing, for those who are not familiar with yield farming, is basically liquidity protocols incentivizing users to deposit liquidity to their protocols, such as ETH or DAI, and then as a reward, they receive the protocol native token. And this has really intensified this whole mechanism of people depositing funds, borrowing, depositing funds again, borrowing again. So like going in circles and optimizing for returns. And this is nothing that we haven't that we don't know from traditional finance, but the way the last few months have been panning out in DeFi is it has just been it started with Comp, and then like all these vegetable tokens followed suit with yam, kimchi, pickle, sushi, you name it, where it maybe started out as an interesting idea, or like also a valuable idea to distribute tokens. But yeah, like in those more recent protocols or projects added very limited value to the overall DeFi ecosystem. And it results in situations where in Compound there is more DAI locked into the protocol than DAI ever issued by MakerDAO, for example. And this whole mechanism ended up in the end, unfortunately, mostly benefiting those who already have a lot, those that already have a lot of crypto assets, and then in the end, really mainly whales determining the way these individual DeFi protocols pan out. So, and I want to highlight that sentence that like then in the end, it actually only benefited, or it's currently only benefiting a very limited set of people. And we already do have a system, the traditional finance system, that is unfortunately mostly or like primarily benefiting those who already have a lot of capital. So Centrifuge, we're really coming from the B2B financing space. So we work with companies to help them finance their assets. And if you look at that prevailing system, the Global 2000 companies, so those who are actually doing financially well, they have very easy access to capital. And those who are smaller, those smaller and medium-sized companies, they actually do not. So if you look at Global 2000 companies, they have access to capital with an average cost of capital of 1%. The smaller ones, they start at 15%. And just because they're smaller doesn't necessarily mean they're not performing as good. The overall or the average SME default rate actually is roughly around 2%. So this discrepancy in cost of capital isn't really explained by the actual performance of a company. So this is also already very much only or primarily benefiting those who are already doing financially well. And DeFi is actually, it's set out to be, or it should be, a financial system without actually any barriers of entry that can benefit a broad user space. And for those that are building that space, we should focus on not just building a system that's benefiting whales and not go from actually sharks to whales. So we want to bring benefit to all types of borrowers. And I have been saying that DeFi has had this insane growth over the past few months. So if you look at the beginning of the year, around like 0.5 billion of US dollars were locked into DeFi. Only a few months later, now we're looking at 11 billion US dollars locked into DeFi. So 22 times as much. If we do look at, for example, only JP Morgan, only in 2019, they had over 25 trillion of US dollars in assets under their custody. So we believe that DeFi is really missing out on a very valuable collateral and on actually serving those companies or like those users that want to borrow money, they want to finance their assets that they actually already have. So we want to marry these two worlds and actually help DeFi get out of this circle and actually tap into a bigger market, and then those SMEs that currently are underserved in the traditional finance space to actually easily access DeFi liquidity. And the way we're doing that, or the way we want to facilitate that, is through decentralized asset finance for real-world assets. And this is what our protocol is built for. So we basically want to allow any company or any business to launch an on-chain credit fund, creating a collateral pool that is backed by real-world assets. That could be assets such as invoices, warehouse receipts, mortgages, etc. Collateralize those and then tap into the different forms of liquidity providers that are out there. That could be a maker, that could be individual crypto holders, or that could be a money market on Aave. And I want to go through the example of an SME or of an asset. So, for example, the one typical asset that we're dealing with is invoices. So, for example, and if you look at the B2B space, really what's the most important thing in B2B is actually to get paid on time. And the reality, though, is when I ship a product or I deliver or perform a service, from the moment that I send out that invoice for that to actually get paid, I have to wait an average of 60 days to actually get paid. And that's the average. So if I'm a smaller business, or if I'm, for example, located outside the US, it can go up to 120 days or several months. So what companies still have to do in the meantime, they have to pay tax, they have to pay for production, they have to pay their staff, etc. And what they often do is they finance this gap. And as I mentioned earlier, for a bigger company, Global 2000 company, that's not an issue. They won't have the problem to access those cash. For the smaller companies, it very much is a problem, because for them, it is actually sometimes really difficult to access those financing services, just really only due to their size. And so what we have here, we have on the one side, we have the asset originators with their invoices, and they want to finance those, and they look for the lowest cost of capital. On the other hand, we have investors that want to optimize for risk and return. And currently, in the world that they're residing in, this is a very intransparent and very rigid market. So it is difficult for the smaller ones to come together. And the way we solve for this is we have built basically like a mini securitization protocol. So we have built a dApp on top of our chain, which is called Tinleg. And in this setup, we have three important actors. So I hope you can see my cursor. So on the one side here, on the left-hand side, we have the asset originator. On the right-hand side, we have senior investor and junior investor. And how do they now come together? So we have the assets, which are invoices. We bring them on chain in the form of a non-fungible token, form of an NFT, because one invoice is unique to the other. So even though maybe it has the same data fields, it does make a difference if my counterparty is Coca-Cola company or the bakery around the corner. So yeah, these are representing unique assets. Then they can be added to a Tinleg pool, and here those NFTs are bundled together. Then they are priced, and two types of ERC20 tokens are minted on top. These are both interest-bearing tokens. So on the top here, we have the drop token, which is representing the senior tranche. And on the lower hand side, we have the TIN token, which is representing the junior tranche. The senior tranche, here investors that are a little bit risk averse can deposit funds, and in return they get a stable rate. What is also true for the senior investor here, they are loss protected by TIN. TIN, then here, if you look down, they have these are the more risky investors. They're willing to take higher risks, but they're in for higher returns. So if everything goes well, they're able to make higher returns and benefit more from the pool. And investors pay into the pool and DAI, or fund the pool and DAI, and the asset originator on the other side here can withdraw the funds, and then whenever invoices are paid out, they receive funds, they can pay back the investors. And so here we have these two types of actors benefiting from each other. So this allows the asset originator to receive flexible and unbiased finance. So it can, whenever there are assets to finance, it can submit more assets, more NFTs to that pool. And then also, because there are different investors that are coming in, and they can in real time track what types of assets are in there, they're able to create this transparent market, and then actually allow more competitive financing on the asset originator side. For the investors, they are able to earn steady interest, and that I have been mentioning here the example of an invoice. This is also possible with other types of assets, such as mortgages, for example. So they can earn steady interest on those different types of assets, and they can diversify their risk. So on one end with other DeFi protocols or or even they can diversify their risk if they're interested in investing, for example, in the senior and the junior tranche. So this is here already benefiting these two players here, but we really very much see also how the broader DeFi ecosystem is benefiting from bringing real world assets to the game. So on the one hand side, it really lowers the barrier, or it allows new types of users to come in. It diversifies also the user group and those who are driving the development of the DeFi ecosystem. It also makes the entire ecosystem much more resilient. We have had in March, we have had a Black Swan event. We have, if you look at Maker, the price of ETH dropped. How many positions actually got liquidated? And this is very much, this accelerated the development of multi-collateral DAI, so actually accepting different types of collateral next to ETH in Maker, but which is good, which is a good step for diversifying risk. But all those ICO tokens are very much correlated to ETH. So if the price of ETH goes down, other assets also go down. And with adding real world assets, in contrast though, adding real world assets, for example, to a Maker vault would just give uncorrelated risk to the DeFi ecosystem. And then on liquidity, it also, I have earlier been mentioning that only JP Morgan has been managing a little bit over 25 trillion US dollars in assets. So if only a fraction of those assets were to be used in Maker, were to be used in DeFi, and then, for example, specifically in Maker, it would generate new liquidity for the entire DeFi ecosystem. And to really drive this home now, what we have been advocating for, I mean, we come from the supplier financing side. This is probably in the whole DeFi ecosystem the least sexy space that you can think of, but because it's a little bit of a sober one, right? So it's not chasing after short-term gains and interest rates of 30-40%. This is really a space or like a system that we're advocating for that is sustainable. There are no winners and no losers. Both sides are basically leveled out. So like supply and demand drives each other, and it is built to be inclusive. There are no barriers other than tech. So we really want to bring other players into this space as well, and reliable. So we don't want to build a system with single points of failure. So we want to build a system that that removes intermediaries where possible, and to make it a diversified space for the broader ecosystem. And this is how we hope at Centrifuge to drive this whole space to a more regenerative, sustainable space for the wider ecosystem. Thanks. I will now be switching back to questions, and here I will keep this slide open. So here also feel free to reach out either by Twitter or via our website. And here, if you want to read more on how Tinleg works, or want to get directly in touch with the community, here's our discourse. And now I'll be switching back to chat. Oh, I saw. Okay. Are there any questions? I hope you could hear me. Okay, there's one question: is this development or already live? So actually, we are live. We have had we have financed a few pools already. I can actually wait. Let me type in here the link. So we have worked with different types of asset originators already, and we have worked with companies where we finance freight forwarding invoices, trade finance transactions where we don't finance the invoices but the cargo. We have worked with, or we're working with a company called New Silver that is financing fix and flip loans. And there are more pools coming live in the next few weeks. We started out with static pools, so where we sort of raised funds, finance those whenever they are paid back. The pools are closed. Investors are paid out, and the pools are closed. We have now launched V3 of Tinleg, and where it allows for continuous asset origination and investors to flexibly go in and out. And the first pool has launched or will launch actually beginning of next week. And how do you see this applying to general user base? Apps incorporating. So I mean, what I've been saying. So we have been working with different asset originator from like really across industry, and we're anticipating more. I mean, already working with a few more, and expecting this to grow. How do you verify the invoice, what it says it is? So we are working, there are different ways of verifying an invoice. So there are, basically there has to be a risk underwriting for any type of asset, not just for the invoice that is submitted to a pool, right? So that is what we have been seeing, is that we have been, that the asset originators are providing risk underwriting for their borrowers, and we are expecting over the next few months that also independent third-party underwriters or risk assess or like service providers that would be able to do risk underwriting to also come in. And I haven't been going into detail here, but we do have our own native token, which is called Radial, which we're experimenting around to incentivize more underwriters to come in and getting a reward for proper underwriting. What we've also been doing in the past is that the asset originators that originate those loans, that they participate in the junior tranche. So in case there is actually a default, the way it works, the drop investors, so the senior investors are being paid out first, and then only after that the junior investors receive their funds. If the asset originators participate in the junior tranche, they are interested in doing a good job in underwriting, for example. There are several ways of diversifying this risk assessment component. Okay, any more questions? I think we have about like 5 minutes left. If not, yeah, I mean, I can encourage everyone to go check out tinleg.centrifuge.io. There are all different pools live. Go on our discourse. Maybe I can drop the link here as well. Discourse at centrifuge.io, or directly reach out to me via email. Yeah, if not, then maybe you can use this time as a short break before heading into the next session. Oh yeah, but would be happy about any other comment, feedback, question.
All right, cool. Do you have any closing thoughts or any additional questions?
Is that for me or for the audience?
For you, do you have any closing thoughts? Anything
Okay.
you want
I think what I've said before, I'd be really curious to hear if there are any potential asset originators out there that can see Tinleg working for their business. Also different investors also taking a look at Tinleg. I've shared website and channels to get in touch already, so I think I'm good on my end. Thanks so much for having me, and
yeah,
have
no
fun
problem.
for the rest of the summit.
Yeah, thank you. All right, take care.